Hey, everybody, welcome out. My name's Chris Daly. My company is Fresh Media Works. You can see the little logo up there in the corner. And today I want to talk to you about this, how podcasting can help your business. And I'm going to go over three areas: creating your own podcast, being a guest on a podcast, or simple advertising, because there's so many ways that this medium can help you. First, let's give a little history of podcasting, okay? Today, everybody knows what it is, but when it started back in 2004 was when the RSS feed was integrated, and I may talk some nerd talk here. You can ignore it. You don't need to know this stuff. There will not be a test. But 2004, RSS enclosures, Adam Curry, Dave Weiner were working on this thing, and they figured out, hey, you can send a blog post feed, which are these RSS feeds, and you could tell it to attach a file. And what people started doing was attaching audio files, which allowed you to become the radio. You know, it's kind of like, remember when television, back, I don't even remember the year, but the strike happened, the writer's strike happened, and suddenly television went in the toilet. You know, all the reality TV shows came out when the strike happened, and that was initially it was okay. Well, this is going to democratize television. It didn't. It really destroyed television, in my opinion. You may be in reality TV, and if you are, I apologize. But when this happened in the world of audio, it did democratize audio or radio. Internet radio was a thing at the time. Some of you may be old enough to remember using programs like Winamp, where you could play a playlist, you could bust in, you could speak on the mic, and you could be your own DJ. This was a precursor to podcasting. Podcasting made it possible for you to record a show. You can edit it, you can do whatever you want to, and it would then send out to whoever subscribes to it. But so it really did. It really opened up the world to podcast creators. And the real benefit, beside being new voices and unique voices and real voices, the real benefit was what we call time shifting audio. When the Joe Smith show came on the radio 7 o'clock Thursday night or Saturday morning, 10 a.m., you had to tune in. That was the only option you had if you wanted to hear it. They didn't archive it. They didn't have it on the web. They had no way for you to hear it other than being there live when it played. This, with podcasts, now you can time shift. Like I said, I started podcasting 2004, depending on who you ask, the fifth or the sixth person to ever do a podcast, in fact. And the first one I did is still going. It's still going, still doing great. In that time, I have created hundreds of shows, tens of thousands of episodes, and millions of downloads. And it's all because of that really cool tool where you can time shift. The first one I started was a show called Lone Star Gridiron, and it covered Texas high school football. A lot of you probably know me from the Texas high school football world, but that's a small piece of the podcasting puzzle that I'm involved in. I say a small piece, it's huge. But yeah, that show is still going. And you can still listen to the very first episode from almost 19 years ago. And, you know, if I put a commercial in that show, it still plays. And we'll talk about commercials at the final segment. But it really did democratize the airwaves. It democratized you being able to tell your story. And at the end of the day, like I said, I'm a marketing company. And by marketing, at least my belief is the most successful marketing is finding out what your story is, finding out the best medium for telling your story, and then using it. So I love this as a tool for telling your story. There's no better person to tell your story than you. You know, when it's coming from you, you speak with passion. If it's coming from a canned commercial, people tune that out. But people, you like him or hate him, the My Pillow guy, he sells pillows because it's him. And it's him talking passionately about it. Some of you Houstonians may remember Mattress Mac. Mattress Mac, Jim McIngvale made millions, hundreds of millions of dollars selling furniture. And he did it by creating these cheesy late night commercials where he would talk about, we have recliners, we have the same stuff that you hear from used car lots, and then he would just jump up and down and go, and Gallery Furniture really will save you money. And because it was him, because he put his personality into it, it grew into a huge company. And I'm not saying, you should use podcasting to become the next Gallery Furniture and make millions of dollars. I'm saying become the best version of you and tell your story using podcasting. So again, the audience, 79% of the people now have heard of it. 2004, I started. 2005, I traveled all over the country. I spoke to business groups. I spoke to college groups. And I'm like, hey, there's new things coming, this podcasting thing. It is huge. It's going to allow you to be the media. It's going to break the stranglehold that Clear Channel and these other companies have on media. Blank stares. That's all I got. It was crickets. Nobody knew what the heck I was talking about. They're like, yeah, this guy's nuts. And I guess the saying is the pioneers get the arrows, right? Yeah, 2005, it was full of arrows. The leading edge was definitely the bleeding edge back then. But now it's different. 79% of the people, of the public, knows what a podcast is, and over 60% listens to a podcast. At least once a month, they will listen to a podcast. Think about that. What other medium, other than like television, do 60% of the people listen to every month? I don't listen to terrestrial radio, period. End of story. I don't do it. And I've got some great graphics in some of my media kits that show the instance of searching for the term radio versus podcast. And when podcasting came out almost 20 years ago, down here was podcast. Nobody was searching for it. Radio was here. As it went on, the radio searches dropped to nothing. The podcast surpassed them. And now it's almost 2-to-1. People search for podcast more than the word radio. So that tells you podcasting's where it's at. End of story. And if you're in radio, sorry, my chair keeps sliding down. and you'll notice, or you'll know if you know anything about me. If you've listened to any of my shows over the years, you'll know that I end every single episode. We're talking tens of thousands of episodes. I end every one with the same sign off saying, I'm Chris Daly, reminding you to keep it real. So the fact that my chair is broken and keeps sliding, that's me keeping it real. It's a real trouble, a real problem I have. But yeah, so let me see what else we got here. Yeah, 53% have listened, Sorry, I've got my screen behind my screen, so it's really confusing for me. So yeah, we want to first talk about creating your own show. Now, a lot of you, that's daunting, right? You're like, I don't know. I don't know that I want to go out there and create my own show, right? I mean, that's a big ask if you're not used to it. But let me ask you this. Have you ever, in a networking environment, talked about your company? Or at a family gathering, told a story? That's all it is. The difference is you're talking to a computer, you're talking to a microphone. Oftentimes, you're talking to a phone because you can record right there on your phone. So it's nothing to be nervous about. You don't have an audience of 10,000 people staring at you, waiting for you to make a mistake. And unlike this show, you can edit. If you say, "Oh, I can't even think of a mistake," but you can just take it out. You can rephrase the thing and edit. It takes a little longer that way, a little bigger investment of your time, but you can get yourself sounding pretty sharp. The key there is complete sentences. So, don't if you mess something up, back up. Say the whole thing over. Very simple edits. Again, but don't even think about that. Be natural. I like to leave the mistakes in because it is real. I do one show called The Marketing Drive. And on that one, I'm literally driving in my car, going to client meetings, any kind of meetings where I'm driving, and I spend a lot of time driving, and I'll think of something. I'll think of something marketing related, and I'll flick on my recorder on my iPhone and just start talking about it. And sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 10 minutes. That's about all the length I have of ideas while I'm driving, and then save it. And when I get home, I edit that. I don't even edit. I just put the intro and outro music on it, shoot it out there as an episode of The Marketing Drive. So you can do it simple. And why? Why are you doing it to be a star? No. If you are, this is not the way to do it. It's like YouTube. You can, if you're going into YouTube to be a YouTube star, you better understand you're going to spend 3 years of nobody knowing anything about you. And that's if you do every day, if you post every day and you do quality content. But with podcasting, you don't have to do it every day. You don't have to fight that algorithm. You don't have to try to be number one because you're not monetizing it through the distribution like YouTube is. You're monetizing it through a bunch of cool ways that you can. One is you're showing yourself as an authority on something. You're building your brand. You're building your credibility. Let's say you're a doctor and you specialize in alternative medicine, or you're a healer that does some sort of alternative thing, and you get on there. You have your show. You have your guests. You do whatever, and the net result is that for those people who like that stuff, who want that, who are seeking that out, you become an expert in their mind. And that's true. You should be the expert. If you're an insurance salesman and you do a show where you're talking about different aspects of insurance, whole life, term life, accidental, triple indemnity. I'm making things up because I'm not an insurance salesman. But if you do that, you're seen as the expert. So your audience, one, will be other insurance people who are trying to perfect their skills, perfect what it is they do, because that I find a lot of people in your industry will listen to you. A lot of marketers listen to my shows. A lot of Texas high school football coaches listen to my Texas high school football coaches show, not because of me, but because of who I interview. And that one, I interview Texas high school football coaches, some of the greatest of all time. And I tell their story, and I get what makes them tick, and I get their beliefs. And coaches love to hear coaches talk because that makes them better at what they do. Same thing in your industry. Doesn't matter. You're an educator. You're a tire salesman, whatever it is. When you're putting out content that shows you know what the heck you're talking about in that field, well, people start to see you as an expert, and more importantly, will seek you out when they have an issue. In the example of the insurance salesman, when you need term life I think that's a thing. I don't know, but when you need some kind of insurance coverage, oh yeah, I know this guy that does a show. He's always giving out his number. He's always giving out his website. I'm going to go check him out. So that's one of the benefits of doing your own show, is building your brand, building your credibility. Another nice thing that works for some industries and sometimes not so much for others is, let's say you do an interview series. I'm going to go back to the insurance. You're an insurance salesman, and you go and you interview people dealing with insurance subjects. Well, at the end of a season or two of 50 shows, whatever you want to do, you can get those transcribed very inexpensively. Do a little editing, you've got a book. And we know that having your own book helps elevate you in terms of your brand, in terms of your credibility. So yeah, that's one of the best things about doing your own podcast. But let's talk about the hard things. The hard thing is just sitting here. Let's say I'm just sitting here and I have to come up with subjects, something to talk about. That's tough. Now you can use some online tools. You can use some AI that you can say, hey, give me 20 topics on insurance for small business. Boom, it'll spit some out. You go through there, you edit, take the ones you like, kick out the ones you don't like, and Bob's your uncle, right? And you're an expert, or you have expert content for your show, at least subjects. Now you could also do an interview series where you interview experts. Let's say you're that new age health person. Well, you could interview somebody to talk about fasting. You could interview somebody to talk about magnesium supplements or infrared radiation, light therapy, or cryotherapy. There's so many experts out there in a related field to whatever your business is. Boom, you've got content that you can repurpose. You can take clips from that. You can put it on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all those places. You can take the entirety of it, make it into a book. So you're creating products for yourself, all the while branding yourself and building, your reputation and your standing in whatever your industry is. So a lot of great reasons for making your own show. Least of which is not PR, just simple PR. If you're doing some good things in the world, let's say you're I've got a client who is an air conditioning guy. He does very good air conditioning work, but him and his wife, their passion is rescue dogs. So maybe they want to do a show about rescuing animals. And that is great PR for his company too. And great PR for them, great PR for the cause. Pardon me, I'm going to take a swig here. some water. Lots of great reasons for doing your own show. You don't want to do your own show. You say, I'd rather be interviewed. I don't want to be the host. I don't have the chops. I don't have the confidence level. Well, you can get a co-host. I do this with several of my clients. I will be their co-host. They are the subject matter expert. I'm the expert at creating a podcast, formatting it in a way that that people will listen and respond. So I asked the layperson questions. Okay, so tell me about this, and they can explain. They feel much more comfortable doing that. So that's another way that you can create these shows. So now let's jump from creating your own show. We'll segue from that to being a guest on other shows. We've already discussed you're an expert. Everybody's an expert at something, right? Even if it's not your business, maybe you're an expert at painting cookies. My wife is, but she has a great career that she's an expert at as well. She could do so many great podcasts. But let's say you wanted to be interviewed instead. You say, I don't want to deal with creating the show and managing the show and distributing the show and doing all that. I just want to be a guest. I want to be seen as an expert. Yes, you can do that. There are some great, I know a ton of people, so feel free to reach out to me and I'll maybe find the show that works well for you. Let me put the website up there, by the way. Yeah, you can go to freshmediaworks.com, and along the left-hand side, there is a book a call with me. We will do a 30-minute free podcast discovery call and figure out what it is, what your niche is, what it is you should be doing. Should you be hosting? Should you be guesting? Should you be advertising? But talking about guesting, there are some services out there that will get you on 500 shows. It's not cheap because, they are doing the legwork and trying to book you on these shows. Or there's some great ways that you can reach out to these podcasters. Some tried and true methods. Again, go to the website, set up that phone call, and we will discuss those ways. Information for me is free because work is the hard part. I will always be available to consult. So feel free to go there, freshmediaworks.com, click that schedule a call thing. But if you are that, let's say you're a tax, an ERC expert, economic recovery, whatever the one is right now, where if you got a PPP loan, you don't have to pay it back. If you kept people employed during COVID, you get it. There's a big credit. There are people who that's their entire company is taking care of that situation right now. That's a perfect time for that person to go be a guest on a lot of these financial shows. And that will attract a lot of customers for them. So depending on what your business is, there's a podcast out there. We talk about the number of podcasts. I think the last I saw, there was something like 5-10 million different podcasts out there. And now you're going, oh, no, why would I even start? Why would I even compete? Because that's a fraction. There are 330 million or 350 million almost now in the United States alone. That's people. So if only 10 million are doing a podcast, that's pretty tiny. And that's a worldwide number. And the thing that has happened in media over the last couple of decades is the fracturing and the hyper focus. So you don't want to reach 7 billion people. You want to reach 1,000 people who are really interested in what it is you're doing. That's all you need. So yeah, don't worry about that, about trying to, oh my gosh, look at all this competition. It's not about that. You don't really build your audience. There's a lot of companies out there who will charge you to do your SEO, search engine optimization, to prioritize different words on all your posts and all that stuff. And yes, that's one way to go at it. It's an expensive way to go at it. At the end of the day, what I'm doing right here, this is what builds your audience, what builds your tribe of followers. You'll go on there, there'll be one person who listens to your show when you first do it, and you might be related to that person. But if you keep doing it, in 6 months, there's 30 people listening. You keep doing it in 2 years, there's 10,000 people listening, and now you've got 10,000 people who are hyper focused and hyper interested in what it is you're doing. So like anything else out there, I guess the best time to start a podcast is just like the best time to plant a tree. It was 20 years ago was the best time. The second best time, today. So don't let anything slow you down from your pursuit, because it's such a powerful way to get you out there. And so we've talked about creating your own show, which I highly recommend. I can't think of a business or interest where it won't pay to create your own show. Then we also talked about guesting. That's huge. It's a little tricky early on because maybe you don't have a name. Not a lot of really big podcasters are going to want to put you on there. So you grab smaller ones and you keep stepping up. And or you have, we've got some approaches that you can use that will pique their curiosity and may get you in front of these audiences. And the beautiful part about that, once you get in front of, as a guest on others, on these podcasts, you're heard by their audience. You're shared by their audience. Then you go and share it, do them the favor too. And then your audience grows. So that's how it works. It's very reciprocal, I slapped your back. How's that? Anyway, I got your back. You got mine. Whatever that saying is. So guesting is great, but now let's talk about advertising. That is that's horrible English. That is simply the lowest barrier of entry to get you in front of a huge audience. The cost to advertise on podcasts versus traditional media, whether it's terrestrial radio, television, billboards, you name it. The cost for podcasts versus the reach, it's not even close. It's no contest. Podcasting is the place to go. I often tell people, they talk about their marketing budget, and one of my favorite sayings as it relates to marketing is, hey, if you had a magic machine where you could put a quarter in and $1 came out, wouldn't you go find every single quarter you could find? Yes. And that's kind of how I view podcast advertising. You have to choose the right audience, because if you're advertising ballerina slippers on Texas high school football show, you might sell a couple. But not going to sell as many as if you advertise that on a ballerina interview show, if there is a such thing, which there probably is. That's what I've discovered. If you think of it, it's out there as a podcast. So part of it is finding the right show, which has the right demographics. I run a network of shows called the Lone Star Podcast Network. And in that network, we have all kinds of shows. Yes, the majority is sports, because that's where I started. That's where, I really got the big growth. But we do a lot of hyper-local regional shows too. I'm now based outside of Victoria, Texas. So we do a show called This Week in Victoria. It's done phenomenal, lots of audience. And if you're in the Victoria area, this is Texas, if you're in the Victoria area, you have something to sell, or you want locals to come see you, that's the place to advertise. A heck of a lot cheaper than a billboard or the television, or, gosh forbid, the radio, which radio I think is the biggest waste personally, just because the second it's said, it's gone forever. And again, as I alluded to before, when you have an ad in a podcast like This Week in Victoria, you can go back to season 1, listen to it, and your ad is still there, which means years later. And this is true. I've had this happen. I've got shows that have been out there 18 plus years that still get downloaded. Again, some of them I don't understand why, because they are timely. So I don't know why people are listening to a show from 18 years ago. But then I have a lot of other shows that are what are called evergreen. Like when I interview former players for the High School Football Hall of Fame. Players like Mean Joe Green, who went on to Pro Bowl and Super Bowl wins with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes, that's going to be a big audience when it plays this summer. I recorded him not too long ago. But 3 years from now, it's still going to have a big audience, because people are still going to want to hear, where he grew up and how he got into football, and how his college career went and how his contracts went. They're going to want to hear those things. So pay attention to that too, whether you're advertising on evergreen shows or timely shows, and they should be priced accordingly. So yeah, again, I think advertising is by far the best use of your marketing dollars these days. Yes, I'm biased, but I've seen it. I've got the numbers. We do one for the XFL Football League that recently restarted with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as the owner. We do one called XFL Weekly, and we haven't added any ads into that yet, just because we're feeling it out, trying to figure out our voice, figure out what all the audience wants to hear each week. So we will probably start allowing advertisers in mid-season, somewhere around there. And by next year, we'll have a full ad package. Here's what, because we'll have the numbers. We'll have the numbers that show the demographics. And talking about demographics, one thing we've discovered in 18 plus years of doing this is the demographics of the average podcast listener. Yes, they're a lot higher educated than the average American. Most of them have college degrees. They're also much higher income than the average American. So this is, while it's a huge percentage of the population that has listened, the regular listeners are predominantly female, meaning just over 50%. It's not that predominant, and when we're talking about one like Texas High School Football Show, yeah, the men are a higher percentage. The coaches show, not only is it a higher percentage of men, a much higher percentage of men, but we've actually done the demographics on what they do, their occupation. Most of that audience is coaches and athletic directors. It's people who have an interest in learning from that group of people. When you talk about one of these shows like This Week in San Marcos, This Week in Wimberley, This Week in Houston, we have a ton of them. You can target exactly where you want to target, but the demographics, you can see the Wimberley demographics are wealthier than, say, the San Marcos demographics. The Houston demographics, which is an amalgam of people, it's got people from the super high wealthy to the very low end income people. But the ones who listen to the podcast are well above the median. So that's it. That's kind of all I wanted to go over with you, was that if you take nothing else away, take away that podcasting, you shouldn't overlook it. It's huge in what it can do for your business, whether you're creating your own show, which I highly recommend. I think, obviously, I think that's a great thing to do, or you're just being a guest on shows. You need to be out there. And at the very least, advertise on podcasts, because you can reach that audience. And what happens on these ads is the host will do what's called a host read ad, and that carries a lot more weight. When I'm doing a show, and I just came from Junior Smokehouse in El Campo, I had a meeting there with one of my advertisers, and had his barbecue sandwich. Oh, it's good stuff. So when I'm on the show and I'm saying, hey, go by Junior Smokehouse, get their chopped beef sandwich, or get their whatever, their sausage, I say it's real. People can sense that. They can tell when it's real versus it's canned. And so that's one of the reasons why people who listen to podcasts take action at a much higher percentage than taking action when they see a television commercial or hear a radio ad, because it is real, and you're as a host, you're in their ears. You're in their ears while they're driving. You're in their ears while they're walking the dog, while they're riding the bike, whatever it is, doing the dishes, and they're listening to podcasts. It's a very intimate relationship. And I encourage you to be a part of it. Again, whether you're creating your own, whether you're being a guest, whether you're advertising, be a part of it. Go over to that website, freshmediaworks.com. And on the left-hand side, you'll see a link to book a call. Book a call with me, a free 30-minute podcast discovery call where we'll talk about, maybe your ideas for a show, or you're not sure where you want to go. I'll learn about your business and we'll figure out the best way to go. Again, freshmediaworks.com. Don't forget, check it out. Again, my name's Chris Daly, and as I mentioned at the top of the show, I'm going to end it the same way I end every show. Hey guys, keep it real. Thanks for listening.